Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Shalom. I'm David Mensa, Israeli government spokesman for the National Public Diplomacy Directorate in the Office of the Prime Minister. This Monday, the 3rd of March, day 514 of the October 7th War. I'll provide a quick update and then we'll get straight to your questions. Please remember to put them in the chat together with your name and your news outlet. We start today with details of the terror attack in Haifa this morning. This is what we know so far. The attack took place at the Hamifratz Central Railway Station in Haifa. It was a stabbing attack. The initial call to emergency services was received at 9:53 a.m. this morning. Police were quickly at the scene. The terrorist was neutralized and eliminated. Magen David Adam EMTs and paramedics pronounced a 17-year-old man dead and treated 4 patients. 3 in serious condition, a male and female in their 30s, and a 15-year-old male. A 70-year-old female is also in moderate condition. The Prime Minister spoke for the nation, sending deepest condolences to the family of the man who was murdered. This has been a shocking terrorist attack in Haifa, and he also sent the nation's best wishes for a swift and complete recovery to those who've been wounded. This is, of course, part of a vicious and despicable wave of terror aimed at harming as many innocent civilians as possible. This is the result of incessant incitement directed by Hamas and their paymasters in Iran. Israel will fight terror everywhere against those who seek to murder us, and we will defeat them. Next, on the hostage release framework, Hamas has refused to accept the Witkoff framework, to which Israel has actually agreed. There is plenty of food and supplies in Gaza. 4,200 trucks a week have gone in during this ceasefire, enough for many, many months. It is Hamas who is harming the Gazan population. Hamas systematically takes the humanitarian aid and sells it to support their own terror. For a year and a half now, Israel has sent in, but Hamas has betrayed. The supplies we sent were so that Hamas could be humanitarian, but instead they've in fact been barbarian. For years, concrete intended for homes was used to build terror tunnels. Fuel meant for ambulances was used in pickup trucks and motorbikes that broke into Israel and carried our kidnapped women and children into Gaza. Medicines have been used to drug our own hostages. Imagine that. Medicines we sent to help being used to drug our own people. Food intended for widespread distribution has been feeding the bellies of the guards that starve our own hostages, our own hostages emerge looking like victims of the Holocaust. You've seen it with your own eyes. Look, get real. The aid we send is used to kill. No more. No free meal to those who kill. Israel will not allow the Hamas terrorist organization to continue the ceasefire under the conditions of the first stage without releasing our hostages. Our hostages have been held in inhumane conditions, and if Hamas persists in its refusal, there will be additional consequences. Next, during the month of February, our armed forces have taken forward counter-terror operations in northern Samaria and other areas. 25 terrorists have been eliminated, including weapons dealers, terrorists who manufactured, planted and detonated explosive devices, and those who planned terrorist attacks. 350 wanted individuals have been apprehended, and 120 weapons have been confiscated, and hundreds of explosive devices have been destroyed. Again, these are straight out of the Iranian playbook of IEDs, which were faced by coalition forces in Iraq and Afghanistan. Israeli security forces will continue their counter-terrorism operations throughout Judea and Samaria to ensure the security of the residents and the citizens of this country. And finally, to end our briefing, it was announced today, sadly, that the legendary Israeli diplomat Dr. Dori Gold has passed away. He was 71 years old. He was a prolific academic. The Prime Minister called him a brilliant Israeli diplomat and a dedicated public servant, as well as being his close personal friend. All of us remember Dori Gold walking into often hostile TV studios around the world, but always representing our country with truth, with class, with distinction, and always with an impressive turn of phrase. As Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, as Director General of the Foreign Ministry, but always with a true love for Israel. With his sharp analytical skills, he was hugely instrumental actually in the Abraham Accords with Arab countries and was frequently a go-between with our Arab neighbours. As the Prime Minister said this morning, may his memory be a blessing. So that's the end of our briefing here today. Please put your questions in the chat together with your news outlet, and we'll take some of these questions here. First question I can see here is from Jodie Cohen from Newsmax, and you're asking, there's been some criticism of Israel's decision to pause aid to Gaza to put pressure on Hamas. However, some commentators are saying that Israel's decision is a similar response to the UN pausing aid to the Houthi stronghold in Yemen after more UN staffers were detained. What's your response? Thank you for that question, Jodie. Let me answer you this way. Look, Israel is prepared to make many painful sacrifices in a pursuit of a change in the status quo. But listen to this: arming and equipping those who seek our own extermination and who use supplies we send to torture our own people is a step too far. No one has the moral right to demand we equip rapists and serial killers so that they may kill and rape some more. Who even asks such a thing? Shame on anyone who even suggests it. The sworn goal of Hamas is to kill every Jew on earth. And so what? You want Israel to pay for their petrol, to make them sandwiches as well? The world should get over themselves. You're leaning on the wrong people. Lean on Hamas. If Hamas suddenly have an interest in the humanitarian, why don't they start a little closer to home? Why don't they release our hostages? Why don't they stop teaching their kids to blow themselves up as suicide bombers? Why don't they stop calling to exterminate the Jewish people? None of that seems very humanitarian to me. And if you're interested in humanitarian issues, then why aren't global media calling on Hamas to do all of the above? Or is it that the Jews are not entitled to the same humanitarian protection and dignity that you yourselves claim as a universal right for all others? Hamas have hoarded for months and months of supplies. They have enough food to fuel an obesity epidemic. But the only people we see getting fat are Hamas themselves. Anyone who has seen the grisly hostage release ceremonies will have just seen how well fed Hamas are. No one is going hungry in Hamas. The supplies are there, but Hamas don't share. Would you ask us to give free matches to an arsonist? Well, until something changes with Hamas, we're not going to give them the equipment that allows them to set the region on fire. If the criminals of Gaza won't reach out their hand to release our people in peace, then they can stop reaching out their hand to take. If they have money for rockets, for bombs, and for guns, then they have money to look after themselves. Remember this point. Not only have the goods sent into Gaza been turned into weapons of war, it has freed Hamas to focus on terrorism rather than fulfill the basic responsibility they have to look after their own people. If there's to be any hope in this region, then the world must stop giving Hamas a helping hand. Anyone who wants to end this war will support these timely measures. So we say it again and again. We give aid and then we get betrayed. We give aid and then they throw a grenade. And when they say supplies, it's all lies. There is no free meal for those who wish to kill us. Next question from David Clement at the News Forum in Canada. Critics of the move to restrict aid have accused Israel of violating international law. What's the Prime Minister's office response to those allegations? Thank you for that question, David. I think I've just given a fairly detailed answer to that question. There is no there is no breach of international law, including on the Geneva Convention. Hamas are using aid to fuel their own terror campaign against this country. They are already trying to fire rockets at us again. They've fallen inside Gaza this time. We will not allow them to use aid to threaten their own people and Israel as well. Next question from Mark Weiss at Khan Radio, and you're asking about electricity and water supplies to Gaza. Thank you, Mark. I've answered that question quite comprehensively. Next question from Joel Pollack at Breitbart News. Was the recent video by the Prime Minister Netanyahu thanking President Trump for his assistance an attempt to draw a contrast with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky? And thank you for that question, Joel. Let me answer you this way, Joel. I was lucky enough to be in the room in the Oval Office when the President made the remarks that he made. I was lucky enough to have seen with my own eyes the welcome which President Trump made to this country. Prime Minister Netanyahu was the very first international leader which was welcomed in this second term. And I was lucky enough and honoured enough to see the welcome which our Prime Minister received at every single step when he went around the US to visit different parts of the administration. In the Pentagon, in Congress, from cross-party members as well. The Prime Minister has said very, very clearly that there has never been a president who has the interests of Israel at the forefront of his mind than President Trump. Israel, as you know, the Jewish people, the root of the word Jewish of Jews is hoda'ah, which means Yehuda, which means to be thankful. We are a thankful people, and we are thankful for the support of the past administration and certainly of this administration. And the Prime Minister has made that abundantly clear. That was why he released that video. Where there have been blockages in arms deliveries to allow us to defend ourselves, President Trump has unblocked them. While others have gone through down the same failed route of failed policies, repeating the same activity again and again with the Palestinians, President Trump has suggested alternative routes. And we here in Israel are extremely grateful for those alternative routes, because it is this out-of-the-box thinking that will take us forward rather than repeating the same failed attempts that tried to get a peaceful resolution in this part of the world, which have failed in so many times. This region needs some out-of-the-box thinking. President Trump is providing that. Repeating the same failed policies will get us no closer to a resolution. So we very much welcome President Trump's out-of-the-box thinking, and we are extremely grateful for the support of the American people. Next question from Joel Pollack at Breitbart News. Is Israel concerned that the decision to cut off aid to Gaza, while legal in terms of international law, could bolster accusations against it in the ICJ and ICC? Thank you for that question, Joel. I've given a fairly comprehensive answer to this question to Jodie Cohen at Newsmax at the start of the Q&A session just before. But I will say this, that Israel very much welcomes the role which Congress is making, and the presidency as well, President Trump in particular, combating the falsehoods, the false accusations being made by the ICJ and the ICC. This is lawfare. This is another attempt to avoid attacking terrorism and understanding that it is terrorism that destroys the peacemakers every single time, rather than the people, Israel, defending themselves against terrorism. These ICJ and these ICC rulings, they simply mean to support Hamas. They support Hamas. They want Hamas to win. But we are here to stop that happening. Okay, that is the last question we have here today. Thank you for joining us. We'll have another briefing later in the week. You can contact us in the usual way for questions or for interviews. So please do stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.